The C++ standard library is used to support a large number of common system-level tasks. This set of library functions is mostly inherited from the C standard library and is generally compatible with standard C code. The standard library includes a great number of functions and macros supporting a broad scope of functionalities, including file I/O facilities for creating, reading, and writing files, string support for C strings, null-terminated arrays of characters, error handling functions for standardized handling of system-level errors, date and time functions provide support for time and date structures, and other utilities including math, localization, signals, and other system services. The headers for the C++ standard library are the same as those for the C standard library with a simple difference. For C++, the headers have no .h at the end of the file name and have a lowercase c at the beginning like this. This effectively distinguishes the C++ library headers from the C versions, which are likely also included with your development system. These C++ library functions are in the standard namespace. For compatibility with C code, many systems may not enforce this rule, but you cannot count on that. It's always a good idea to use the standard namespace when using these functions in C++. These functions are all very well documented. You can find documentation for these functions in the standard man pages if you're on a Mac or a Unix system, or in the library documentation that comes with your developer environment, or by simply typing the name of a function into any major internet search engine. It's important to note here that these are standard I/O functions. The C++ standard requires that these are supported. Some systems, including Microsoft Visual Studio, have their own versions of these functions, and in particular, Microsoft's compiler will even go so far as to throw an error message if you use the standard functions instead of their own versions. I'll be teaching the standard versions of these functions because this course is about standard C++. So in order to make these exercise files work without error on Microsoft compilers, I've added this preprocessor macro during the setup for the working project in Microsoft Visual Studio. This tells the Microsoft compiler not to fail when it sees these standard functions. If you're using Microsoft Visual Studio, feel free to use their versions of these functions if you wish. The techniques are the same. The C++ standard library is very large, much more than could be covered in this course. For our purposes, I will cover those functions that are most commonly used for general purpose programming. There are many good references available that cover most or all of the library. The standard library is inherited from the standard library for the C programming language. As C++ includes the full definition of C, the standard library is also fully included in the C++ standard. Even though C++ has additional object-oriented libraries for its own use, they do not duplicate the functionality of the standard C library, so you will need to use these functions in your C++ code for many common purposes.